Today on our 280 SL project, we're going to figure out how to get the door jambs from looking like this to looking like this, and being ready for the new paint to get applied in all our jambs and our blackout applied down here on our rocker panel. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a minute and talk to you about a website that I've been involved with for a couple years now. It's called Mopar Connection Magazine. This is the only online daily Mopar magazine on the market, and it comes free to you in your email. You can catch all the videos of Project Marcia on there, plus a lot of the other project cars that they have going on. And one of the things that they have too, they have a really nice web store where they've got t-shirts for sale and other things that you can buy that will help support all these projects and also help keep the magazine coming to you free of charge daily. So go over to Mopar Connection Magazine at www.moparconnectionmagazine.com. Check out their web store and get yourself a shirt. Just want to catch everybody up where we're at, cleaning up the door jambs, door openings, trunk openings. And I've been working on this weather strip channel back here for the top opening, and we've got both the door openings ready to go and the bottoms of the rocker panels that need to be painted. Last thing to do is get the hood opening done. I'm going to walk over here to the doors because I wanted to talk a little bit about door jambs and prepping doors. And so I found the easiest way to prep these doors, and I know it's not easy on all cars, but these doors were fairly simple to get off the car. I was able to drill 2 guide holes. As you can see, I drill an 1/8 inch hole in the hinge, through the body, through the hinge. This way it locates the door again when I go to put it back on. But the reason I needed to get these cleaned up better was I don't know the history of how these doors were prepped. I know the paint seemed to be adhered fairly well. There were areas where, such as on this hinge and this hinge, where the paint would come off of the original brown paint fairly easy, which meant that it either wasn't scuffed right or there wasn't a lot of paint on it, or both. And the other thing I wanted to talk about too was your door edges. When you're repainting your car, door edges can be an area where paint will build up. And when you have a lot of thick paint on your door edges, it makes it easy for them to chip there. So it's always best to try and get all the paint off your door edges, even on the front side here. If you can get it away from the edge and feather it back a couple inches so you don't see it. This way you have less chance of getting a door chip on the edge of your door, or a paint chip on the edge of your door, I should say. So I figured I'm going to go ahead and change the way I was going to paint the car. I'm going to get my blackout done first on my door opening and my rocker panel, and also I need to put some, I was going to black out the underside of the trunk panel where the fuel tank bolts in, and do inside the trunk just to get some paint on there so it's protected. So I'm going to go ahead and get that paint, get those areas done. Then I'm going to go ahead and paint my trunk jamb, hood jamb, do the door frames, and then maybe a couple small parts that need to be painted red. I'm going to flip the doors, sand the doors, and paint the doors off the car. And then when I paint the car, I'm going to paint the door openings with the doors off. This way I can get complete coverage inside my door openings and also have no paint lines when you open the doors. Alright, we're going to continue on with our work here on the Mercedes 280 project, and we're down to getting the jambs ready for paint. Trunk opening, hood opening. I'm going to get all those areas cut in, change the color on the dash so it matches the car how it's supposed to be. And as I started on the door jambs, as you can see, I figured out that the doors needed to come off the car in order to do these properly. Now when the color change was done, whoever did the color change had to have taken these doors off also. because there's paint up inside of this area of the door where it meets the fender that there's no way could have been put on as nice as it is with the door on the car, and especially in the door opening too. I'm going to show you that in a second. But all the hinges have paint on both sides, so that is another indication that these doors were painted off the car, because if the doors were on the car, the back side of the hinge where it's bolted to the body would still be the original body color or bare steel, depending on how the factory painted the car. So that being said, I went ahead and pulled the door off, which made it easier to get the weather stripping off. There's also another retaining bar up on the front part of this door that holds the weather stripping on, that there was just no way I could get the screws out of it. There just wasn't enough room. So doors came off. I did drill some locating holes in the hinges, top and bottom, so when it goes back on, it'll go back on in the exact same place it came off of. I've already started cleaning up the trunk opening. As you can see, I got the car out of the booth. I'm going to take you over and show you that and let you know about how I went about cleaning that up. Alright, as you can see, I've got the trunk gutter cleaned up where the weather stripping sits, and the reason I took this down to bare metal was it was easier to do on this. I used one of these strip discs from 3M. They clean all the paint out, plus there was a lot of glue and rubber left from the old weather stripping. It got all that out of the way, and then I finished cleaning up with a roll-lock pad on my grinder, and it got everything nice and cleaned up. I've got the front part yet to finish up, but for the majority of it is already finished up. Well, one of the things I wanted to point out on this door that I found, the owner told me the car was repainted sometime during the 80s, and there is a piece of chrome trim that goes along here that the door panel sits into, and it's where they decided to make the brake line when they did the color change on it. But if you notice right here, this tan color, and here, all along here, what that is 30-year-old masking tape, because somebody forgot to take the tape off before they put the trim back on. Alright, we're moving along with getting our areas prepped for epoxy primer. Here in the trunk, I've gone around one time with some epoxy primer on all my seamed areas so that I can lay down my seam sealer next. I wanted to make sure I had some protection on the metal before putting the seam sealer down. So we'll go ahead and seam seal everything up there. Inside the car, same deal. Where all the seams are, where I put in my panels at, I've epoxy coated the seams so the seam sealer can go on. Some over there, up in the front there. And back in here in this corner we had some just surface rusted metal. So we've gone ahead and coated that with some Pour 15. Also inside of here, there's some area in here that had some surface rust on it that we couldn't get at to clean out with anything. So I Pour 15'd it to protect it, and that'll leave it ready for a top coat of epoxy primer and paint. I spent the last couple hours going around and seam sealing up all these seams and places where I've welded the panels in on this car, but I wanted to show you just a little bit how I go about doing that. I'm using another Sim product. Sim black seam sealer. Comes in a tube, looks just like a caulk tube. You use a caulking gun to apply it with, and what I do is I just come on and lay a bead down here, and then I use a brush. It's just a cheap chip brush. You can get them at any hardware store. They're like 50 cents. I cut the bristles down so that it's a little more stiff. So I cut the bristles down so it's a little more stiff and easier to use, and it doesn't drag and smear the stuff all over the place. So I just take the brush and just give it a nice drag across it. It leaves a nice brushed pattern on it, just like the factory would do. So it kind of looks as original as possible. And that's pretty much it as far as doing seam sealer. Some people like to do tape on either side and make nice straight lines. You know what? The factory never used tape when they were seam sealing these cars. And if you want things to look as original as possible, and you kind of got to follow what the factory did. So again, we just lay a bead down, take our chip brush, run it over top of it, give it a nice, and this helps push the seam sealer into any little holes and cracks that there might be. And that's pretty much it. So that was the extent of my last 2 hours on this car, was getting everything seam sealed and ready for the next phase of epoxy primer and getting some paint in the trunk area and paint here in the door openings and some other pieces we got to paint up. Alright, here we are back in the paint booth. I've got the pieces that I needed to get done black all finished up. Got both our grill halves done in a matte finish, as well as the splash shields that go inside the fender areas at the rear, and our rocker covers, all done real nice in a nice matte black finish. Also on these rockers, I did a chip guard. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a little bit of a texture to it, not real heavy, but it's enough to make it look real nice. Will help protect it from stone chips. We'll go out here and take a look at the car. Also did the same thing here on the bottom of the rocker panel. Now those covers will screw onto the car here. I'll go over this and cover up this pinch weld, make a nice finish there. So we've got the door openings done in the matte finish. As you can see, both sides already. And also did the underside and the top side of the trunk. It's a little hard to see. It's dark under here, I know, but as you can tell, this was done in a gloss black because the inside of the trunk had more of a gloss finish to it than the outside did, or the rocker covers in the door openings. So I did a gloss finish on the top inside of the trunk and the bottom side. That leaves all my black areas that are finished up, so we can keep moving on with the paintwork. Alright, as you can see, I've been doing a lot of masking on the car. I'm getting ready to do all my jambs. Now I don't have to do the underside of this hood. The paint is pretty nice under here, so I'm going to leave all that alone. Otherwise I'd have to take the hood off, sand this and scuff and do all kinds of, yeah, anyhow. But I do need to do the insides openings because the paint was not very good on there. It wasn't sanded very well when it was done last time. I also want to try and get more paint down inside of here so that when the hood's open, it's red and not brown. If we come around here, I've got my trunk all ready to go. Everything is masked up, so we're not getting any red overspray on top of our black paint that we just did inside the trunk, and not anything up on the inside, bottom side of the trunk, because I'm not spraying that either. So we'll do all around the trunk opening. Also going to do, walk you around this side, do my dash area now. Now this dash, what I'm doing with all this masking is just trying to keep as much overspray off of the primer as possible. Light overspray on top of it is okay, but when you start getting real thick color and clear coat on top of your primer, it just makes it harder to do that final sand on. So I take the time and I mask off the car as best I can. It doesn't have to be perfect, just lessen the amount of paint you get on there. And such with this dash, a lot of this dash is covered by the dash pad, and there's a lower pad, and there's pieces of leather that get glued to the dash around here. It's mainly the center section of the dash and around the gauge openings that you see the color in, and down along the bottom of the where the steering column is, right in there, you see the colors. And these dashes are supposed to be color keyed to the outside of the car. This originally being a brown car, the dash was brown. Well, we wanted to match the outside now, so we've gone ahead and got everything scuffed, and we're going to change the dash color to red. Well, we got everything cut in that I wanted to get cut in. Dash is now color matched to the outside of the car, every place that it will be seen. I didn't come all the way over to these edges because they are covered with a leather or a vinyl piece, so that'll all be covered over. The top of the dash has a dash pad, so that didn't need any paint on it. I really just wanted to make sure I got the center done because the center does show. One piece I did not get was the glove box door. I still need to pull that out and sand that and paint that. We got the hood opening done all the way around, and then even in the front here now, so when you look down in the front you're going to see red and not the brown. And the same thing here in the trunk, and the top cover opening where the weather stripping goes is now red. We got our trunk opening done in red. And just to show you why I spent all the time masking the car off, because as you can see I have very little overspray here along my edges, so when I do go to start sanding on this car, I don't have to sand through all this clear and the color and take all that down before I get back to my primer to get the primer coat sanded down. Same thing here, a little bit of overspray is not going to make a big difference, but trying to sand through, you know, various coats of clear and color and everything else just adds extra work. So I take the time and I mask everything off. Doors are all finished up around the door frames. They all came out real nice. So they are ready for new weather stripping to go on them, which I have to order yet before they can go back on the car. And then they'll be ready for installation. So we're going to get these flipped over today, and that's going to be the next video that we start the sanding and painting process. So keep following along as we get our Mercedes finished up as far as our paint work goes, and then we'll move on to start with our reassembly on the car down the road a few months. But thanks again for following. Any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you again real soon.